Hi, this is Zoe from Belvoir Bedford, and I'm really excited today to introduce Tim from Beerfly. As you know, we've been talking to local businesses about how lockdowns affected them and how they've stayed positive during these awkward and difficult times. We've learned so much in such a short space of time about how great Bedford is as a town. And today we just want to share Tim's story just to see how things are going and how we can support him. So hi Tim, you run Beerfly. Could you, for anyone like myself who's maybe doesn't know much about beer, can you sort of just give us a little bit of your story on how you came to be running Beerfly and how you got here?
Yeah, sure. So Beerfly is a independent beer shop essentially, and we kind of specialise in modern style beers or craft beers, some people call them. So that's what Beerfly is. And my background is that I used to run a pub. So I had a pub out near Olney, I don't know if you know it, and essentially I ran that for 6 years, and we sold the pub in 2018, and then, or 2017, 2018, around then. And I was really just looking to do something similar that kind of takes some of what we had in the pub, that kind of atmosphere and getting to talk to people. So we wanted to put that in to a new business that didn't have some of the limitations that we had found when we were running the pub. So Beerfly was kind of born of that, really. It was born of trying to create a kind of pubby atmosphere, a nice kind of welcoming place, but on a quite small scale, and with quite kind of specialist beers, or certainly being able to support more independent breweries, which sometimes can be difficult with a kind of traditional pub.
Yeah. Where does the name Beerfly come from then? How did you settle with that? Because it's an interesting description.
Yeah. Well, we made it up.
Nothing like honesty.
There's no real particular sort of like light bulb moment. It literally is a sort of made up name. We were sort of scratching around and just doing lots of sort of research and just working up different names, brainstorming, and in the end, I think the real reason we kind of went for it is that I liked the kind of bottle fly logo, and I felt there was a lot we could do with that in terms of being able to just stamp a kind of bottle fly onto things in the future. I just thought it was quite an interesting kind of concept. And then with the kind of colours, this colour scheme, the kind of green and that kind of bottle fly thing, and bottles, green bottles. So it just sort of all started to kind of come together and create a sort of create a brand that we thought was interesting and something that people would be interested to go and find out more about, really. And I guess it sort of says, fly, and you sort of flying around, fly on the wall, yeah. So those were the things that we thought.
No, that's good. Are you a local boy then? Are you Bedford born and bred?
Yeah. Well, I came to school here, and I was here until the late 90s.
Showing your age now.
And then I was at uni, and then in London for a bit, and then we came back. So yeah, I grew up in near Olney, where they or Oney, as you should call it.
I have no chance in getting it right, being from the north of England, so I'll go with whatever you say.
It's Oney as in pony, don't you know?
Oh, is it?
But yeah, so yeah, I grew up there and came to school here.
Great. So obviously, how long had you been trading before lockdown #1 hit then? I mean, I'm assuming you've got well established and a good, client base, and then this all hit the fan. So how many?
Yeah, we opened in July 2018. So we've been going about, 18 months at the beginning of this year. So yeah, we were reasonably well established, I'd say. And we certainly had a good sort of loyal followers, loyal sort of core of customers who would come in. Obviously, it's very different once you're no longer a sort of really a drink-in establishment, and you have to make that switch to being kind of entirely takeaway, but and that changes your customers a little bit. But yeah, we were reasonably well established.
Yeah. So when March hit, then how was that? How did that make sort of you feel as a company? Was it very difficult the first time?
Yeah. Well, I think initially you kind of there was very much a feeling we didn't know what this was and what was going on, and that kind of first lockdown hit, and I think we just closed basically. We didn't do anything for the first sort of at least the first month or so, and we just felt at the time that that was probably the right thing to do. And then as time sort of went on, people were getting in touch, customers were getting in touch, friends were getting in touch and sort of saying, oh, you know, have you got any beers? Could you just bring a few beers around? And so we started to sort of do just an easy little service where I'd go into the shop. So the guy who works with me, he was on furlough. So I would just go into the shop, pick up a few beers that, you know, I thought they would like, or that were, you know, that had been sort of sitting around for a bit, and we would take those out. And we needed to get, the product is perishable. So at that point, we were kind of starting to become concerned that some of the beer was going to start going off. We didn't know when we were going to come back. So it started to be a problem. And then we kind of worked that up into a more formal delivery service that we were putting out to our sort of VIPs, our loyalty customers. And we would send them an email every week saying, look, here's all the beer that we've got available, and we'll bring it to you. That was on a Wednesday, and we'd bring it to them on a Thursday. And it was kind of like a sort of modern day milkman. We'd turn up with these wagons of beer.
More interesting than
yeah. So we would, we'd turn up these flagons of beer and we'd switch them over, and it was all very kind of safe, and they didn't have to, you know, come out of their homes at all. It was all very much like playing very much to where we were at the time. But we kind of established a really good business with this delivery service. And then when they said that non-essential shops could reopen, we reopened. So that was about June time.
Yeah.
So we've been shut 2.5, 3 months, I think. We'd been sort of shut. We'd only been doing the delivery service. And then we reopened for takeaway, pretty much in the same way that we are doing now. So we're open 3 times a week, Wednesday nights, Friday nights, and all day on a Saturday. And then we deliver, at the moment we're delivering on the Friday. So that's we just sort of minimize the amount of work that we're doing. And that means we can use the part-time furlough a little bit, because we haven't got enough work to keep us going full time. But yeah, it works reasonably well. We're able to sort of provide a service, I think, that's safe in the first and foremost, but also gives people an opportunity to get things that they might want, like, you know, ridiculously expensive beers.
Which are very, very nice, I'm sure.
Very nice.
You've adapted, you would say, now to this sort of strange time that we're in. Would you say that your client base is the same, or would you say you've attracted different clients because you're more online and delivery that you would have got from like just people just wandering in to see you?
Yeah, I think I think a bit of both, to be honest. Like, there are people who we haven't really seen much of since March, where they would have just used us essentially as a bar or a pub, and we haven't been that for them. And then there are people who maybe hadn't been in at all, and like the delivery service, or who, you know, have just started to come in and collect beers and use us in that way. So yeah, definitely we've seen new customers who we'd never seen before, and some of the customers who we, you know, knew reasonably well, we haven't seen so regularly, just because in a way the business is different to what it was at the beginning of the year.
How have you found, I mean, one of the things that we've sort of looked at is how the knock-on effect is within businesses. So for example, your suppliers, are they managing to get beer to you now? I mean, has there been like a short supply, or are they sort of desperately trying to give you more? I mean, has that been okay?
It's really difficult. It's, you know, pubs and bars and therefore breweries have been really hit by the whole thing. You know, they've been hit, and to be honest, targeted a little bit as well, or it certainly feels that way. So they're in a really difficult position. Breweries, by and large, the majority of their volume goes through pubs and bars. So when you close the pubs and bars, then you're closing off a main part of their market. So they've done the same thing we've done. They've adapted and they're selling more direct, which in a way then creates competition for what we're doing. And so there are a lot of so it's a very adaptable, very changing market, and we have to sort of keep that in mind all the time. Supermarkets are very much in our markets as well, and obviously breweries are now, if your main market dries up, so your pubs dry up, then you have to look in other places to try and sell beer, and supermarkets are one of the options. So we have struggled. We did struggle the first time, not initially, because the first few weeks when lockdown hit, beer takes about 3 or 4 weeks to get through from making the beer, from sort of making the wort, to then getting the beer out into the market, getting it into cans, getting it into kegs, through the fermentation. So it takes about 4 weeks. So there's always a lag time. And then there was a kind of a sort of a lull of new beer coming in to the market, because nearly all of what we do is bringing in new beers that have never been to the shop before, and we're bringing about 15 to 20 beers a week in that are brand new, often from breweries we haven't used before, but we've heard really good things about, or that we've sampled and we think this is something that you might be interested in. So they struggled, I think, and they had to adapt. And then when the pubs came back online in the summer, the breweries were starting to get themselves back into a rhythm and get their market back opened up. And then obviously lockdown 2's happened. Essentially, it was really difficult for breweries to, they had to adapt. And then now with lockdown 2, it's difficult as well. But,
one of the things we've always asked the people that we're talking to is how have you stayed positive during all this sort of weirdness and negativity that's around at the minute? How have you kept sane in all of this?
I think we've got a young family, so actually,
not young enough, old enough for the homeschooling as well. Then you've not had to.
Well, no, we didn't have to. My kids are 1 and 4, so we had them at home. But actually, I mean, the 1-year-old, she was at home anyway, so it wasn't a big deal. And the 4-year-old, he would normally have gone to preschool 3 days a week, so it was just a bit more intense. But I guess you've got to take the positives out of it. So the family time was really positive, and certainly in the first lockdown, the weather was nice. We got out for walks every day. It was really, in many ways, it was a nice time. And I think certainly for the first sort of month or so, while I wasn't doing any delivery, I wasn't working, and while it was kind of reasonably it was new, it wasn't something we'd experienced before. I think it was actually quite nice just for the whole sort of country to kind of stop and just, relax for a few weeks. I appreciate that it's difficult, and it was a difficult time, but it was also initially sort of almost exciting, and then it dragged. And I guess, you have to sort of, like anything, you have to keep things in perspective. It is a difficult time. It's a difficult time for everyone, and you just have to try and focus on what you can do. So the fact that we were able to do delivery, that we were able to do takeaway, and once my son started school, so he is going to school now, so that's good for him, and he's enjoying that, so that's good for him. You just have to take the positives where you can find them, and hope. And it does certainly seem as though things might be changing a little bit, and like next year is not just going to be a repeat of this year. So that's really positive. It looks as though we can start to plan, for next spring, summer.
I mean, I was going to say, with the announcements that have been made, I mean, obviously we're not clear on what tier Bedford's going to be in, but what plans have you got? I mean, are you able to go back to normal, or will it? I suppose it will depend on the tier system, will it? Because if you're not serving food, you won't be able to. reopen the bar, will you? So have you got a plan, or are you just sort of going to wait and see what happens tomorrow?
Yeah, a bit of both. I think if we go back into the tier one that we were in before, then we will go back to where we were before, essentially. So that was operating a limited drinking service, table service, in 1, 2, 3, 4 groups. So we could have essentially 4 sort of bubbles in the shop at a time, up to 6 people. So we can operate the booking system, and that would be the ideal really for us in December. That's what we'd like. But if we're in tier 2, then we'll just continue pretty much as we are. We won't be able to serve a drink in, but because obviously we don't do food. But you know, we'll be able to do delivery. We'll be able to be open as a shop. We can extend the hours a little bit in that scenario as well. So try and be open a bit more for people wanting to get gifts and things for Christmas. Yeah, I think until we know exactly what tier we're in, it's hard to plan precisely what we're going to do. But I'd like to think we'll be open longer in December, and if we can do some drinking in, then that would be great.
I'm going off a little bit of a tangent a bit, and that's what I do, unfortunately. When you were sort of normal, as the previous normal, not the new normal, did you do like beer tasting sessions and things like that? So, I mean, that could be something that in the long term, next year maybe, that you would kickstart doing again.
Exactly, yeah. That's exactly what we do, yeah. So we had quite a few different events and things that would happen. So yeah, we do private and public beer tasting. So every other week, we would do on a Thursday night. You can just come and we taste different beers, either from a particular style, or we do it as a kind of introduction, so you can try lots of different styles of beer. So we will go back to doing that definitely, and we do events as well. So we did Hops and Dreams, which was a sort of beer festival that we did in the Harper Suite last year, which was a really good event. And then we do sort of things, tap takeovers. So we showcase all of the beers from a particular brewery. So yeah, we tend to have events every couple of weeks, really.
Yeah. Have you ever thought about doing the online beer tasting? Because I have seen this sort of, you know, some people do this Zoom beer tasting, don't they? I wondered if that had ever crossed your mind.
We've done some little bits and pieces. We did a thing with Blender in July where we got a brewer. It was a similar thing to this sort of Zoom call, and they had some musicians, and we got a brewer on, and we did some tasting with him. I think that's up on Facebook if you.
Yeah, well, that's what was sort of leading to next. Is one of the reasons I'm so excited to speak to you today is because I stumbled across your Beerfly sessions. And I think one of the things for me personally is I'm a massive music fan, and I love my festivals and all that. And for me, it's been really difficult this year because you can't get out to look at gigs and listen to live music. And I was absolutely blown away by the talent you'd had in your bar. And I don't know if anybody out there has seen it. I will be putting the links on because I just couldn't, you know, there's such great talent in Bedford. It was amazing and a really great initiative. I mean, how did that come about?
They approached us. So Blender is a local promoter essentially, and they work with local artists. They put together EPs. They they promote local artists and give them a platform to kind of get started. And so they approached us in June time to sponsor their kind of online Friday night meetup. So they do similar to what you mentioned, this kind of beer tasting. They do it, but with music. It's kind of like an online chat show essentially, with a bit of chat, and they have different musicians, and the musicians will play. And so they approached us for that, and I guess we've just kind of gone from there really, and we've built a relationship with them. And then we were talking about doing like sort of live sessions. So artists, obviously the struggle is that they weren't able to play live anywhere or play to anybody, or even rehearse, I think, initially, because you can't just sort of meet up in a room with people, and certainly you couldn't at that point. So they sort of talked to us about using the shop as a sort of rehearsal space. Once sort of July was over, so this is into August time.
Yeah.
They were talking about, you know, using it as a rehearsal space, and then whether they could film them. And we were open, and bars and pubs were open. So, you know, we said, yeah, of course, you know, come and use the space when we're not in there. So that's sort of how it came about. And then they're incredible. They've had some, you know, some brilliant artists in there. And you know, Adam James Unwin. You know, there's lots of different people have been through there, and Lowdown as well. Recently were on, and they're brilliant. The Pearl handled revolver. So there's, yeah, Bedford's really lucky actually. It's got a fantastic scene, and it's a shame, you know, with Esquire's closed, there's nowhere for people to play, and they're not allowed to play anywhere. Really. So it was just trying to give those guys somewhere to play, and the opportunity to put something together, a kind of video, a little music video that they could then use when things do get back to normal, hopefully to promote their music and to get, you know, to get back out there. So that was sort of where it was born.
It's just like I say, it's really great. I mean, it's really great that you're supporting local artists in that respect as well. And you know, anyone out there that doesn't know about it, I will make sure that they can find the information. Obviously, also I'll share all your links to your Facebook page, your online ordering and things like that. But obviously, one last thing before we go, how can the people of Bedford that may not have come across Beerfly before, how can we support you now during this time? You know, how can we help? You know, because this is what this is about, really, sort of reaching out and trying to support each other as a town.
Yeah, definitely. Well, I mean, come and see us is the first thing. Come see what we do, and you know, let us show you some of the beers that we have. We've got gifts, so if you're potentially not a beer lover, then there might be somebody in your life that is, and we have some nice Christmas gifts. So, you know, come along, and we can help you to find really nice gifts for your loved ones this Christmas. We also are launching later this week St Cuthbert's hamper. So there's a Christmas hamper, and it's made up with products from some of the independent shops up on St Cuthbert Street. So the Flying Cork, Bears and Tails, Vanilla Tree, and the store. And so that's another really easy way to support not just Beerfly, but all of the independents on St Cuthbert's. Is to buy one of the hampers, and that's a nice gift, or something nice for yourself. It includes items from each of those retailers. So there's lots of ways, but I would just sort of seek us out and see what we do. And if you're not a beer lover, then come and have a look, because in normal times we sort of pride ourselves on finding a beer that is right for you. So it's unbelievable, the range of different beer styles. Everyone thinks of sort of, you know, the dirty water pints, old man sort of beer, and it's not like that at all. There's some really interesting stuff. There's fruited beers, there's sour beers, there's sweet beers. There's a beer for every palate, if you like, for every taste, and we're sure we can find you something that you'll.
Sorry, and would you, because obviously I love this local sort of theme with your hampers and things, but say for example somebody wanted to ship that elsewhere rather than sort of Bedford, are you able to sort of ship for, I mean obviously there's a cost implication, but you can ship to, you know, the granny in Newcastle or wherever?
That isn't set up yet.
It's coming though.
We can try. It's difficult because there's quite a lot of alcohol in it.
Yeah.
In the box, it comes in. It comes in a little box. So it would be shippable. I'll look into it. It's we'd certainly deliver them locally. We can deliver them out to you. But yeah, I'll look into shipping and see if we can.
But I mean, that, you know, it's amazing, because one of the things is that, you know, we all want to now buy local, and I think you know, the fact that you've plugged in with other local business is really positive, and you know, I think that's what we should all be doing. We all have a little bit more time on our hands to be able to shop more savvy rather than wandering into a supermarket, and I think that's just, you know, it's an amazing thing to do, you know. So
agree.
hats off.
Thank you.
Literally. Well, that's brilliant. I'm really pleased, and I'm really grateful that you took your time out to speak to me today. And I just, if there's one thing you'd want to say now to your audience, what would you like to say? Your last parting words.
Well, I
buy beer.
Drink beer, yeah.
Yeah.
Stay safe, you know, stay safe, and hopefully we can have an enjoyable Christmas and try and make it, you know, as normal as possible. And where, you know, I think the nice thing, and maybe we can help a little bit with it, is sort of treating yourself, doing things that are a little bit different, and definitely supporting local retailers. You know, I think all retailers, barring Amazon perhaps, need your support, whether they're national or local. But you know, you really can't beat supporting a local business, keeping the money in the local economy, because often they're supporting independent and also local businesses themselves. So the majority of our suppliers, and I know in other cases, are independents themselves, and so you're really your money goes straight to the grassroots. So I would always say, you know, support your local businesses and help them, and enjoy your Christmas.